I've gotten a lot of questions lately about why I am not a huge fan of stability on TRT, meaning steady state, right? There's all these different names for it. A lot of protocols that come from the clinics offer stability. You know, it's sub-Q injections, it's 200 milligrams a week, it's done in like the thigh or the belly fat. And yeah, you end up at, 1150 to 1500 total tests. Estradiol usually over range, in that case 45, 50, maybe 55, but it's stable. A lot of guys chasing steady state often feel great. Their energy is good. The anabolism is good. They sleep good. They really don't have any side effects. The hematocrit is lower because it's steady state, but their libido is non-existent and erections are kind of meh. Why would that be the case? I'm going to explain it in this video, but before we do, I'm going to just give you a quick hint in saying, have you ever taken nootropics? Have you ever drank caffeine? Have you ever taken any stimulants? You develop a tolerance to those things, don't you? The central nervous system regarding libido especially needs strong signals that peak and that trough. Otherwise, you're just at a stable baseline, you get completely used to it, and libido goes down the toilet. Libido is not a well-being homeostasis signal. It is a drive signal. The nervous system responds to contrast, not constants. This is true for dopamine, as a lot of us know, and androgens as well. So let's break down. Let me just finally put the nail in the coffin on steady state testosterone. I mean, because first of all, we're not naturally steady state as natties when we have good sexual function. So why the f would we be steady state on exogenous hormones? Sit back, strap in, grab a beer, relax. Let me break it down so you can dial in sexual function on TRT, because that's what I care about and that's what this channel's about. Let's get into it. All right, before we get started, Cortex Labs, which is my company, is a TRT coaching and TRT products company, mainly around restoring sexual function. Got a range of different products ranging from courses, mastering testosterone cream. If you need to dial in on cream, just get this course. If you're looking to go on cream specifically for libido and erections, get this course. It is the guidebook to dial in sexual function on cream. Source list. This is a list, a vetted list of any anabolic you can think of, the stuff that you might need when you aren't dialing in. Get DHT, get Proviron, get whatever test of any ester you want to. It's on source list. Coaching. Listen, I just launched a bunch of new coaching options. The Sexual Function Restoration Blueprint. It is a single session call with 3 to 5 action routes, a generated protocol tracker for you to go and execute. 3 months for more intensive sexual dysfunction, 6-month advanced TRT sexual function restoration for the really, really hard, stubborn cases, and a PFS recovery coaching program. You book any of this in under a minute at livecortex.com. All right, to break this down, you sort of kind of have to understand like the conspiracy behind it. And I don't want to appear as if I'm a tinfoil hat dude, because I'm really not. I just like to call out truth where I see it. So let's talk about something that the clinics do not want to admit. And that is that they love one word. And that is stability. Stable testosterone, stable estradiol, stable labs, stable moods, stable hematocrit, stable blood pressure. That's what they want. And listen, stability regarding some of these things is not entirely bad. But from a sexual function perspective, stability is very often dead. And if you've ever thought, like on TRT, like I feel good, I'm anabolic, I'm energized, I feel stable, my mood is good, but sexually I'm flat, this video is for you. The truth about clinics and therefore some of the protocols that get suggested out there that get permeated throughout the web is that clinics are not seeking nor giving you protocols for sexual function. That is not their goal. TRT clinics and cookie cutter protocols, therefore, are not optimizing for libido, erection, sensation, and climax. That's why people like me exist. If the clinics were doing their job, I'd have no business. They're optimizing for predictable labs, fewer complaints, fewer phone calls, and importantly, this is where I'm going to sound a little tinfoil hat, liability protection, which means their protocols are built to create flat hormone exposure. Flat testosterone, flat estradiol, flat physiology. And flat physiology is calm, but flat physiology is not desire. Just think about this, okay? Regarding sexual function and libido. Libido is not a calm state. It's not like you're chilling calm and very, very level and then you have libido. Usually you're flat if you're chill, calm, and very, very level. Libido is a drive signal, right? It's a a pulse that hits you very strongly, that you feel neurologically, that you feel viscerally, that communicates via the brain and oxytocin and dopamine and blood vessels and the spinal cord to the penis, and gets you revved up. So what does stable TRT, like absolute steady state where your numbers really don't change, do to the brain and therefore your sexual function? Well, number one, stability means that the central nervous system androgen action becomes muted. You just get used to it. Dopamine tone, which is critically important for any degree of sexual function, drops. Again, you drink the same amount of coffee, your body's just going to eventually get used to it. You're really not going to notice the signal. You stop drinking coffee for 2 weeks, and then you bring in a sharp, stiff espresso. You're gonna notice it. When things are stable, novelty and urgency, sexual urgency, fade away. Sexual anticipation weakens. In other words, your brain stops noticing the androgen signal. This is where, like, in bringing coaching clients and stuff on board, I see that a lot of folks get confused because the testosterone's good. The estradiol could even be in range. And DHT can be, like, pretty high. Energy is decent, anabolism decent, sleep is decent, but the sexual function's muted. Let's talk about stability versus signal contrast. Again, the brain needs contrast to notice things. This is true for dopamine. Think about it, right? Anything that you've done to increase dopamine, whether it was a mucuna purine supplement or it's cabergoline, right? A D2 receptor activation, you typically just get used to it. Prior to consulting on hormones, at least in large part publicly, I'd been doing that privately for many years, I talked a lot about nootropics and was very into them. And I would run into the challenge of stability being achieved, meaning the same doses of the same shit, the same kind of nootropics being taken by people consistently that I was coaching. And then the effects just sort of started waning. So the long and short of why stability is not always great, it's usually not great for sexual function, is your body, brain, sexual system kind of just gets used to the level of androgens that you have, and then you just sort of fall off a cliff. You're lukewarm all the time. You can maybe get it up for penetrative sex, okay? And your libido might start to fire as you're engaging, but you're not horny when you're sitting. You're not horny when you're hanging out doing work. You're not horny when you're at the gym. You're not horny when you're driving. And erections don't just spontaneously come out of nowhere. The sexual system is lukewarm. Let's break down some protocols, and I want to show you how I've come to this conclusion over the years and give you a few examples of, like, pretty stability, like stable. Here's a protocol that, like, would keep a person relatively stable, and it's the same protocol every day. And how, even though the numbers were in range, it didn't really do much for sexual function. And then a hybrid was introduced into this protocol, and sexual function problems were resolved. All right, so this is a client that came to me on 2 pumps a day. Okay, so they had followed the advice in the Mastering Testosterone Cream video not to go high doses on the 200 milligram per milliliter cream, of 200 milligram cream on the scrotum with 150 IU of HCG every day. That was their protocol. Clean and simple. DHT was like 70 something. Total testosterone peaked at about 900, but very shortly after went about 700. Estradiol between 25 and 35. They were in the numbers sweet zone. They could get it up for penetrative sex, and libido might have started firing during sex or whatever, but it wasn't overpowering them. They had no actual drive. So, I mean, the guy thought he had all manner of other problems, like related to previous nootropic use or otherwise supplement use. He started removing his B vitamins, thinking he's got some methylation problem, like all this nonsense you're going to read on the web that has nothing to do with sexual function. All we did in this case, because I recognized, okay, the numbers look great. All we really need here is a little bit of contrast. Is we just infused a test prop dose of 25 milligrams every third day. That's all we did. We started every other day. It was a little too much. Estrogen bumped up a little too much. We got the rating. It was too high, and it was kind of staying high. So we went to 25 milligrams of prop infusion every third day on top of that 2 pumps of cream. And then miraculously, right? Because prop is in and out of the system. It's like 18-hour peak, and then it just drops right off. Somehow, libido, erection, sensation just stayed stable. It stayed stable on the peak of prop. It stayed stable on the trough of prop. Why? Contrast. There was contrast. There's this stable baseline, and then there's an infusion creating a peak and trough, which we do naturally and we rely on naturally. And then the system woke up again. It wasn't constantly stimulated by androgens. It wasn't the absolute steadiest state the whole fucking time. It was a steady baseline and then a change. It was contrast. It was doing this. And the fluctuation wasn't wild. We don't want wild fluctuations because you never have any degree of stability in sexual function with wild fluctuations. Not to mention you've got acne, crazy acne, and otherwise side effects from that. It was a little bit of a fluctuation, right? It took the stable base and gave it the natural-esque hormone fluctuation that the central nervous system needed in order to fire on all cylinders. I've seen these cases on the other side of the spectrum, right? We ultimately end up developing a hybrid to create this manufactured peak trough situation on top of the stability. But instead of cream being the base, it was Cypionate. Cypionate at 100 milligrams a week, everyday injections, and then a pump or two of the low concentration cream on top of that. The Cypionate injections, guys, at 25 estradiol. This is 100 milligrams Cypionate, 150 IU HCG a day. 25 estradiol, DHT, 50, 55, okay, that's medium, but it should be good enough for sexual function. It's not like you're going to be walking around with like ED with that. All we did is get the 100 milligram cream in the picture and put a pump on the scrotum every day. We started at every other day. That made things better, but it wasn't quite right. We ended up at every day. It's just a pump of the 100 milligram cream on the scrotum every day. It's like, how do you explain this? That fixed the guy's sexual function, whereas lukewarm, kind of moderate, like mediocre prior, and then it was firing on all cylinders and the guy felt like he was 16 again. How do you explain this? Well, frankly, the numbers didn't change all that much. We tested at peak and trough, they all went up a little bit and then they kind of slowly worked back down. What changed is we created contrast. We brought in some cream and it created some more DHT. It created a peak in DHT, a peak in test, a little bit more estradiol, and then it all troughed. And then suddenly it's like this guy's body wasn't used to the same consistent thing all of the time. It got a little contrast, like when you remove caffeine and then a week later you drink an espresso, a strong one from Starbucks, you're like, holy shit, I notice this now. And if you're able to pattern recognize, if you're able to synthesize forums and experiences of people and put them together to get the overarching idea of what is happening, you could go to Reddit, the testosterone subreddit, and see that this is true. Basically, when people are super stable, they have flat libido and erections. But when they introduce a degree of contrast, i.e. in some cases less frequent injections, like if they're just running Cypionate, libido and erections come back. Who else feels better on less frequent injections? I've tested it, and for whatever reasons, possibly fluctuations in E2 and aromatization, but I feel consistently better on one larger injection a week over 2 or 3 smaller sized injections. Man, this happens all the time. I am a proponent, if you're using the longer esters, especially in doses above 120, of injecting less frequently. It just sometimes fixes the libido, man, via the peak and trough and lack of stability. Anyone feel better on less frequent injections? Now, this is where libido specifically was modulated by modulating the injection frequency. I changed from 1x 200 milligrams Sustanon every week to 2x 100 milligrams a week. And after 2 months, I can fairly say I felt much better on 1 injection per week. Libido dropped significantly after going 2x per week. Anyone else tried this? At the same time, it's estrogen. Look at this guy. He's asking if there are studies showing less E2 with frequent injections, because that's like the myth out there. You inject every day, you end up getting less estradiol. Well, it actually turns out never to be true. I really never see that to be true. So it puzzles me why people are out there saying do sub-Q injections of Cypionate every day. It only works at extremely lower doses when you have no chance of getting estradiol over range. And you get to those 130, 140, 150 plus milligram doses of long esters, it never works. This guy, for him, 100 milligrams a week split into everyday injections, test 950, E2 42. Same dose, 100 milligrams every 7 days instead of doing it every day. Testosterone right around the same area, slightly lower, 923, E2 35. It's 7 points lower, boys, from just inducing a peak and trough. So estrogen has a lot to do with this. The same is all for all the rest of this. 200 milligram a week, everyday injections, testosterone 1560, E273. Same dose, 200 milligrams a week, every 7-day injections, testosterone 1452, E251. Man, that's a 20-point difference. Simply, they're inducing a peak and a trough. The hormones aren't stable. One of the main reasons you don't want super stable hormones is because you have overlap in estradiol. Now, obviously, if you're running cream, 2 pumps of the 200 milligram per milliliter, you want to make it so that if you're infusing an extra bit of Cypionate, just as an example, or prop as my example with the client prior, you want that stable baseline dose to not make you over aromatize. So that when you infuse the extra hybrid ester or hybrid modality like cream, it doesn't actually take you over an estradiol or substantially over. You just get the peak and trough that your body needs, the contrast that the central nervous system needs for libido to fire. All right. So that's the breakdown. I just want you guys to understand, because if you're not going to do coaching with me, cool. I just get a lot of emails and a lot of questions, and a lot of comments. I followed some of the clinic's advice, or my numbers stay pretty much the same and they're all in range, and I really don't have good libido. And people think they need to start taking like D2 receptor agonists, cabergoline, bromocriptine, macunapurines as a dopamine supplement, nootropics that affect dopamine like phenylpiracetam. It's not the answer. The answer is you're entirely too stable and your nervous system has no contrast whatsoever. Regarding androgens and specifically dopamine, both of those things, you need to peak and trough. Even if it's a little bit of a peak and trough, you have a pretty stable baseline and then you peak and trough a little bit, that is enough sometimes to cure the libido problem on TRT. So please keep that in mind. Implement hybrid protocols. Honestly, I want to implore people to at least consider it. I've discussed a lot of them at length on the channel. A lot of them are discussed in some of our products. I'm on a hybrid protocol myself of cream and then an infusion of Cypionate every 7 days at this point. It just fucking works, boys. It works. Okay. If you're stable on everything, and numbers look good, but sexual function is kind of lukewarm, try inducing a superficial peak and trough. Okay. Give the system a little contrast while the numbers still stay in range or close to in range, specifically estradiol, and I guarantee you the problem is going to be solved. All right, look, as I said in the beginning, if you're having a difficult time and don't want to go at this alone, I mean, this is the basis of what we do for coaching. I've been doing it for just about 7 years so far, and I've got a lot of clients under my belt. And all of the coaching packages have been revamped to include a single session consult with 3 to 5 action routes, a TRT protocol tracker, all engineered by me based on a fact-finding 30-minute call with me and you. That's called the TRT Sexual Function Protocol Blueprint. This is great because it's not ongoing coaching. For those that don't have the budget and don't want to be mired in ongoing coaching and a good degree of frequent communication regarding updates and adjustments, just do the TRT Sexual Function Protocol Blueprint. Single session consult, call with me for 30 minutes, full protocol generation, 3 to 5 action routes, TRT protocol tracker. However, some cases are going to require time and adjustments, communication about feedback, and that's where the 3-month TRT Sexual Function Restoration Intensive comes about. Those of you with bigger budgets that just want someone that is a professional that does this every day, all day for years to solve libido and erection problems on TRT, just book me for 3 months. For the real stubborn cases, I mean, these are cases that haven't responded to anything that you have done. These require a great degree of thinking, cross-referencing similar situations, because I've seen them all regarding sexual function in terms of client work, and putting together very, very targeted, highly thorough protocols that restore sexual function on TRT. That's the 6-month advanced TRT sexual function restoration. You can book any of these in under a minute at livecortex.com or on the fact-finding call as soon as the next day, and then we begin and hit the ground running. Book any of those in under a minute at livecortex.com. I'll reach out to you within 24 to 48 hours to start. Mastering Testosterone Cream is one of the most revolutionary courses that I think has ever been created on the internet regarding dialing in erections and libido on test cream. A lot of people are out there floundering because there's bad advice regarding it. I break it all down and give you only the protocols that work in Mastering Testosterone Cream, the video course you can download it in under a minute, livecortex.com. Source list, anything you can think of, vetted list, check it out on the screen. Anything, you can download this instantly and then just go get whatever you need. Sometimes not dialing in is a matter of you don't have what you need. People need Proviron, people need Masteron, people need Primo, people need DHT itself. Some of the stuff you can't get here. It's all on source list. Go get it at livecortex.com. Last, if you need to dial in, Cypionate. I created a video course on dialing in libido and erections on test Cypionate. Okay, now we've reached the end of the video, and I hope you guys get. I'm I want all this information for just, it's important. Like the video, sub to the channel. We're growing now, and find. I can't even think. Hold on. Give me a second. Why can't I move this chair? God. Phantom stuckness again. Anyway, boys, yeah, like the video, please. We're a growing channel. I'd love to have you on board as a subscriber. If you're new, just hit the sub button. The mic. I wasn't talking into the mic. I'm sure that would help. Just grab it real quick. It just slipped my mind is all, but I'll grab it. Hold on. What is it? Give me this thing! The video's over. Been a pleasure hanging out with you, boys. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope you enjoy the rest of your week. More content to come soon. Please look forward to that. Like the video. It makes a huge difference, honestly. If you would do me that one favor, hit the like button. I'd be forever indebted. If you're new to this channel, we break all of this down for many years and forever in the time continuum. Love to have you on board. Otherwise, kick ass, rock on. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll talk to you boys in the next one.